QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021, change account categorization to other expense categorization. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars homepage. We currently have the Open Windows open. You can open the Open Windows by going to the View dropdown and selecting the Open Windows list. We're going to be opening up our profit and loss report here. So we're going to go to the Reports dropdown, Company and Financial. Take a look at the P&L, the Profit and Loss Report. Let's change the dates up top from 01/01/21 to 12/31/21, January through December 2021. So what we want to take a look at is recategorization, one of our expense accounts, that being the interest expense account. We're going to put it from here down to the bottom in a bottom category, which is going to be other expenses. Why would we do that? Similar to what we saw in a prior presentation where we adjusted this gain or loss, it might be something that we might consider outside of our normal kind of operating activities. So gains, losses, interest income, and possibly interest expense. We might say, hey, look, that's not part of our normal operations. We only have the interest expense due to the financing process. So you might want to be able to move that down and then imagine it by doing so, being able to imagine, well, what would be the case if I didn't have the financing or the loan that I needed to take out? What would I be doing without that financing charge? And then see the financing down below, because again, you can consider the financing as being basically something not part of the normal operations. So the idea being that we have the ordinary income here, which is going to be part of basically our normal operations. This is what we do. And then either the more unusual type of items or things that are basically outside of the norm, things that we would not have unless certain circumstances took place, including the gain or loss and the interest income, we might move on down below. Oftentimes when you think about statistical ratio analysis as well, they oftentimes will be breaking out the interest expense out into a subcategory as well. So it might be useful if you run kind of ratio analysis to be breaking that out in a sub type of category, putting it down to the bottom of the income statement or P&L. It does add some length to it. You can see down here, it does make it a little bit longer. We have another subcategorization, which makes the profit and loss a little bit more complex to look at, but I think it does add value for many people. So then how do we do that? Well, we already have this expense account set up here. It's already there. So what we want to do is just go into that expense account and change the categorization. When we do so, it should move it once we go back to the report and refresh from the expenses categorization down below. So let's do that by going to the lists. So I'm going to go to the lists item. I want to take a look at the chart of accounts. It's in order by the account type over here. So assets, liabilities, income, and then expenses, or more specifically cash, other current assets, and so on. It's cash, accounts receivable, then other current assets, and so on. We're looking for the expenses down here. I want to find that interest expense. There it is. I want to change it now. We could do so by either selecting the account rise up. It's a drop down rise up kind of thing down here. And we could say edit, or you can right click on this account. You can just simply right click on it and go to edit account. So if you double click on it, you'll go into the register, or you won't go into you would go into the register if it was a balance sheet account, but you won't go in typically to editing it unless you right click on it and go to edit. So here we have it, and now it's an expense categorization. I want to just change that. I'm just going to say let's just change that to other expense. So it seems like a small thing, but it's a pretty big change on the income statement. It's going to show in a completely different kind of area, although still acting as an expense. So I'm going to say save, and then if I go back to the P&L, we see that it's going to be down here in the other expenses categories down below. We have it down below in the other expenses, and that means now this is going to be our ordinary income from normal operations, and then here's the other kind of activity that happened, other income and other expenses. Now you could kind of group these together. I mean, you might want to like net them out. If you just use like other income for this item and this item, then the expenses would basically show as a negative number. Let's just show you here. If I went to the chart of accounts and I adjusted this again, let's like edit this and just play with it here. And I'm going to change this now to other income. Why would I do that? It's not income, it's an expense. Because I'm trying to say, well, I just want to net out one category. I don't need two categories down below. I just want to net them out in like the one other category. So I'm going to say save and close. And then I go to the profit and loss, and you'll see it says other income here, which isn't specifically right because it's really other income and expenses. But by doing that, I only have one category. I don't have two more subcategories down below, and the expenses then will show in as a negative number, and the revenue will be a positive. So it'll be like, here's our ordinary income plus any gains, that would be the positive numbers, minus any other expenses down below. And that's another way that you could see it, which kind of is a little bit shorter, a little bit cleaner to actually look at. But the title won't be exactly correct because this would be interest and expenses. So let's go back to the prior format. So I'm going to go back to the chart of accounts and change it back again by right-clicking here on this account and say edit that account. And then I'm going to select the drop down, and let's move this back to other expense. So we have the other expense. I'm going to say OK. And then if I go back to the P&L in the open windows, again, now we see it broken out into those two categories, a bit longer, but a little bit more specific.